Okay, welcome to I'm in a Car 2018. This is video number 1 of 2018.
Woo!
Yes, starting off the new year.
All right.
And I have my lovely guest, Christine McIver, joining us today. Thank you so much for doing the show.
Thank you for asking me.
Yeah, it was a pleasure. So, in true standard I'm in a Car fashion.
Yes.
Actually, before we get into it, one of the things I said I was going to do more this year is give a little intro as to why we do these videos. The purpose at Intrigue Media is empowering leaders to strengthen communities. And our whole idea is that we want to provide the tools that we can to give people the knowledge, the resources, and the platform to have a bigger voice so that they can have more influence in not only their work environment, but the communities they live and work in and play in. So this is just a platform to try to create a whole bunch of learnings and maybe avoid some scar tissue so that people can get ahead a bit faster, a bit further.
That's a tagline.
Yeah, which...
Avoid scar tissue. That might be in a radio show.
There's got to be something coming. There's a lot of it out there, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, in standard fashion, though, we would get into a little intro. So maybe you could give the crowd a little bit of an idea of where you've come from and what you're up to these days.
Cool. Thanks. Well, I came from the human resources field. That's where I first began my career. I did that for about 25 years. And I worked my way up to a large organization that I absolutely loved and had an amazing leader. It was actually based in Guelph. And this leader was just phenomenal. He inspired everyone around you. Paul Fike, I don't know if you've ever heard of his name, but he is a phenomenal guy.
So shout out to Paul Fike.
Shout out to Paul Fike,
if he ever
for sure.
sees this?
Yeah. That'd be awesome if he saw it. And he really brought out many of us what it is to be a leader. And when he left that organization, like I said, everybody just kind of went running in different directions. It fell apart. And it was at that point that I really wanted to look at what it was for me that I really wanted to do when I grew up, right? And
whenever that might be.
Whenever that might be, I'm still looking. And so I started my own business, and I thought I was going to go into HR consulting, and that just did not turn me on. I still do some of it, but not on a full-time basis. And so I got into coaching, and very quickly went into both personal coaching and business coaching.
Cool.
And a couple years after starting that, I was approached and asked if I wanted to do radio. And I was like, I think so. I have no idea what that means. And I was like, yes. And
the true entrepreneurship tendency to leap before looking.
Absolutely.
I'm in.
There was this jump inside of me that was screaming hell yes.
Yeah.
Like it was hell yes. And I was like, I don't know what this is, but it's a hell yes.
Cool.
So I started in radio, and I've been doing radio now since 2011. And in 2014, I was actually asked if I ever thought about producing, and I'm like, I don't know. What is that?
Yeah.
What does that look like? And that started to add to my business. So I've been producing radio, doing coaching, business, all sorts of different things.
Awesome. And so what's the platform for the radio now?
So the radio is inspiredchoicesnetwork.com, and my personal is inspiredchoices.ca.
Okay, cool.
So it's both.
And what's it all about?
So Inspired Choices Network is it's about bringing conscious voices to the world. So whether you're talking about parenting, you're talking about business, you're talking about sex, you're talking about
life.
Having courageous conversations, whatever it is.
Cool.
It's how can we bring consciousness to it?
Awesome. So a couple of things then in that little summary, and thank you for sharing that with the audience. A couple people have asked me about touching on the subject of what it takes for an entrepreneur to become an entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And I did a video in December kind of around the topic, but it was about kind of trying to mitigate the risk because a lot of people kind of perceive this giant risk in it.
Right.
But it's kind of cool to get people's different stories on it.
Right.
So you're in a great organization,
yeah.
Relatively stable environment, secure paycheck, all that good stuff, and then you decided to take this jump off a cliff, this leap off a cliff, and become an entrepreneur.
Yes.
So what kind of went through your head when you decided to make that decision and did it?
Well, can I just say before, I've always had the mindset that whether you're working for yourself or you're working for somebody else, you're self-employed. Because unless you get out of bed and get your ass in gear, you're not making any money.
Yeah, that's fair.
Right?
That's totally fair.
So that has always been part of who I am.
Yeah.
What had me really choose forward and take that jump off the cliff was, if I want to make a difference in the world, I've got to lead. And I've got to lead from what I know to be true. And I've always had this desire to make that contribution in the world from what I know. And it was one of these things where you absolutely knew if you didn't choose it, you were going to be disappointed with yourself.
Right.
And so in doing that, it is scary. It can be scary because as an entrepreneur, if you're putting something out there that's never been put out there before, you don't see the roadmap. You don't see where everything's going to fall into place, right? You've got to have your own back.
Right.
And you've got to be willing to do what it takes to get there. And so when you've got to be willing to also say, you know what, I'm having a tough month this month. Well, can you help me out?
Sure.
Right? You've got to be willing to maybe put some safety nets in place while you get your fish legs going, right? And so for me, it was a matter of having a little bit of a cushion to begin,
right,
and to still do the HR, because the HR was still something very solid that I could jump back into, right? And you've got to be willing to, like, okay, if it comes to it, I'm willing to work at McDonald's. I'm willing to do what it takes to make this dream in my heart come true.
That's cool.
Because the last thing any of us want is to have regret at the end of our lives.
Right. And I always say that you'll typically, in my life anyway, I typically regret the things I didn't do.
Yes.
It's very rare do I regret the things I did that messed up.
Right.
I can learn all sorts of stuff from that, but I definitely have regretted things that I haven't done, and I'm putting back into my life to make sure I get them done.
Nice.
Yeah, that's really cool. So then when you did make that leap of faith, it really sounds like there was a passion that drove you to do it.
Yes.
Whereas, maybe not everybody has that fire inside them. So, and what I've heard from other entrepreneurs is that passion is the fuel.
It is.
And if you don't have it and you're doing it just for the sake of money and things don't go well, then it's a lot easier to throw in the towel. But if passion's driving the decision, then no matter how hard things get, it's a bit easier to do whatever it takes.
It is. It's that thing that kind of keeps that spark going, So I often say to people, what is it? What was it? Go back to that moment. When I work with entrepreneurs and, maybe they've been in business for 10 years and they feel like they're kind of hitting a dip or something. I say to them, okay, so go back to that moment. Close your eyes. Go back to that moment. What was it when you first had that spark? Go back into that. Let's get all of the senses going in your body, and pull that energy back into you. And then when they go, oh yeah, right? Because there's so much noise in our world, and there's so much noise in business that we forget that spark and the reason that we did it. And when we can re-invite that back in, it's amazing how we can go beyond all the noise. We can go beyond the paperwork and the taxes and and all of that, and we can go, okay, this is what I want to be doing.
Cool.
So that's what it is for me.
And what was that passion then? Like, what can you articulate the dent in the universe you wanted to make? Like, that you're making now, but back then you're like, I gotta go do that.
So for me, it was, and it's interesting how it's continued to unfold, but it really is every voice matters. Every voice matters. So what do you know, Rob, that nobody else knows, that if you weren't to bring it to the world would be a sadder place?
Yeah, that's cool.
And that's what it has always been for me. I didn't know it, and it's gotten clearer and clearer.
Yeah.
But when I'm working with entrepreneurs, when I'm working with individuals, even, I have a program called Divorce with Dignity, and in this program I work with people to really articulate what it is that they want to have in relationship, and what do you know about yourself that you're not honoring? What do you know about this other person that you're not honoring? So it's really tapping into and helping people to really see that there is something more inside of them that maybe needs a little bit of the dust clearing off of it.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, having that kind of clarity over time, because I think the same things kind of happened for myself, and I can probably say a little bit for Paul, when we co-founded Intrigue Media.
Right.
we wanted to change the way things were done, and we wanted to create something, but we weren't quite sure what it was. And over time, we realized that the purpose of our company is empowering leaders to strengthen communities. And then, well, we just happen to be a digital marketing company, and that's one of the ways we do that. But that passion of bringing leadership and community to life, it really drives us. So I think you nailed it.
Fabulous.
Yeah, it's really cool. So going back to the Inspire Choices Network.
Yes.
You created this platform.
Yes.
And you're like, hell yeah, I'm getting on the radio. and then it turned into a production, not just a show.
Yes.
And this idea of what was you used it was very succinct, the sentence about
bringing conscious voices to the world.
Right. So can you just break that down a little bit?
So there are a lot of people that are out there, and they have ideas and thoughts, and they have capacities, and they know that the way it's being done in the world right now, it doesn't have a lot of integrity, it doesn't have a lot of kindness, and it can be done better and be done differently, right? And so these people, what I'm looking to do is to help them bring their voice to the world, to help them contribute what they know, and have them do it from a place of honoring themselves, their business, and the people that they want to get their message to, right? So what can we be doing collectively to really contribute to the world in a way that we leave our mark?
Cool.
And I know that every single human being on the planet knows something that I don't know.
Right.
And so that's what I want to do. I want to bring your voice to the world, because I always felt like I wasn't being heard. And now I own a global platform where I'm being heard all the time.
You know, it's funny. Before we got in the car, we were just learning about each other, just asking some questions and shooting back and forth. And I found out that Christine is the ninth of 10 kids. So I'm curious if maybe there's some inspiration that spawned from not being heard.
Yeah, right. It still goes on wrong.
Yeah, I bet.
Yeah.
I mean, I got 3. I can't imagine 10. Like, holy cow, what a busy home that would have been.
Yeah, and by the time I came along, the older ones were starting to get married and have their own kids. So 10 quickly blossomed, let me tell you.
I bet.
Yeah.
That's amazing. That's a really cool story, and I think it means a lot in terms of like enforcing that idea that, you know, I think a lot of people, and I've heard this when we do presentations and in group settings with clients and potential clients and all that kind of stuff, when it comes down to, you know, blogging or doing video or anything like that, radio was great, that they're like, well, what is it that I can say that someone else hasn't already? You know, there's this kind of perception that there's so much information in the world that I'm not really going to bring anything unique to.
I know.
So
that's interesting. I was talking about that on my radio show last night. So the radio show last night was called Yippee! Now what? Right? After the bells and whistles all go down, like, what do I do now? And what I absolutely know is you and I, Rob, can have the exact same message, and the way that you deliver it and the way that I deliver it can speak to people in such a different way. They'll never hear me. They won't even see me, but they'll hear you. And we could be reading the exact same script, but it's the energy that we be. And so I know that each person can contribute. They can speak to the next person, and they, you know, it's kind of like that chain mail, right? We can send it to the next one and inspire someone else.
It's a really neat perspective I never really took before, because it's not necessarily the message we're delivering, it's the people we're impacting.
Yes.
And so just because you and I might be saying the same thing doesn't mean we shouldn't say it.
Right.
Because other people might not hear it.
That's right.
Unless we both say it.
Exactly.
That's
please
wonderful.
say it. And I mean, I've heard many leaders, and I can't think of them off the top of my head, but I've heard many leaders say there's nothing new in the world.
Right.
And there isn't. It's the way that we see it. You and I can look at a picture and we can both see a very different thing in that picture, right? We can hear a song and hear something in there that speaks to us very, very differently.
Right.
Well, your voice and my voice, they're no different than the picture or that song.
That's cool. So, what's in the future then for this Inspired Choices Network? What's the plan for 2018? What up to? What do you do?
Well, you know what? Right now we're just finishing up a contest where we've had 9 people competing to have their own radio show for free for 3 months.
Awesome.
So it's been so much fun. It's been such a exciting time.
Yeah.
We're looking to, really permeate into different markets. We've had a lot of spiritual conscious, very direct spiritual conscious people on the network, and we're looking to expand into every area of people's interests, whether it's finances or health or anything. And so that's what we're really looking to do. How can we get out there? How can we get our visibility out there more, so that we can empower others to put their voice across the world? And we have hosts from all over the world. We have hosts in China and England and Ireland and Jamaica. Yeah, like I was on the phone this morning, or on Skype actually, with my host in China. Like, it's phenomenal. I have contacts all over the world because of this. That's awesome. They're my friends.
Yeah, that's cool. So, how does someone tune in?
InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
And then
that's it. It's right there on the homepage. It says listen here.
Yep.
You can check out the archives. We have thousands and thousands of archives that you can check out. We are on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram.
Cool.
We live stream on 12 different platforms. You got an iPhone, you got a cellular phone.
You're good.
You can find us.
Awesome. One of the things I want to touch on before we go into like the kind of final question was this piece around what was the gentleman's name? Fike? Paul Fike. You said something that I thought was really interesting about how he really kind of taught us what leadership is all about.
Yeah.
So without spending the next 2 hours discussing leadership, because everybody's got a different spin on what it actually means, what was it that Paul brought to the world that really, inspired you and people around you to understand leadership a bit better?
Connect with others and connect with yourself. The one thing that I really think makes a huge impact is to be willing to be vulnerable with who you are, and to be willing to do the work on yourself and be real. I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. Every day I'm looking for, okay, what else can I add? What else can I learn? How else can I be the better me that I desire to be? And being willing to be that, and let your staff, let your team know that. If you tune into any of my radio shows, like, I'm crazy.
That's probably why I reached out.
We connected.
Yeah.
But I'm just very real, and I'm willing to say, hey, you know what? This is what's going on with me, and I know that inspires others. I've had people write me emails, and they're making me cry from the things that they're saying, that just for me being real, what it did for them to know that they can get through whatever they're in.
Cool.
And as a leader, it's not about pushing somebody. It's about really showing them how you can move through, beyond, and whatever you're going through, and then to flourish.
Cool.
Right? And so that's what it is for me.
And Paul really embodied that.
He embodied that. He was so real. It was phenomenal.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, if you were to go back, a few years, and maybe even when you started your own gig and entered the world of entrepreneurship, what have you learned over the few years or couple years you've been doing it that you could go back and tell yourself something that you wish you had known then that you know now?
That's a great question. Christine, you know more than you think you know. And if you would just trust yourself just that much more, you got this. You got this.
And so why did you pick that one?
Because I think many of us walk around with doubt. We've got this negative voice in our head all the time. Should I? Oh my God, did I screw up? Right? And if we would just really follow the thing that's pulling us, and just know we're going to get there, when we let that doubt go, we're able to receive more of our knowing.
That's cool. I think it's so true for people all over the place. Entrepreneurship, non-entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Just the idea that, hey, if you believe in something, let it happen.
Yeah.
And even if it doesn't work, you're going to learn more.
Absolutely.
If it doesn't work,
oh my gosh,
by trying it.
I've learned so many things. I've learned that skydiving was awesome, but I'll never do it a second time.
That's something I think I learned too. I think I've said I would do it. I'm not sure if I actually will.
Well, you got to do it once. Come on.
Yeah, no, I'm with you 1,000%. That's amazing. Well, thank you a ton for doing this.
Thank you so much. This is awesome.
Cool. And if somebody wants to talk to you about being a host or
Yep.
getting on a show.
Yeah.
InspiredChoicesNetwork.com.
InspiredChoicesNetwork.com. It's right on the homepage. Become a host, or they can email me, Christine at inspiredchoices.ca.
Amazing.
Yeah.
All right, thanks for doing this.
Thank you so much.
All right, bye guys.
Bye.